It taught me that every single day is a gift. I don't try and live every day like it's my last. I try and live every minute like it's my last. Because you know what? One day I'm going to be right.
Welcome to the Montclair podcast. Today we have a special guest. Today we have Paul Smith. So Paul is a seasoned entrepreneur and co-founder of Touchstone Education, a company dedicated to empowering individuals through property investment education. Paul has a rich background spanning from the beverage industry and digital media to now running this education company. Paul has built a multi-million pound property portfolio and is recognized as one of the UK leading wealth creation educator. He is also a best-selling author and a Guinness World Record holder. Paul now resides in Monaco and is spending an hour and a half almost with us today. And we get to understand where Paul grew up, his background when he was younger, and how he built his portfolio of companies, what he does today, and how he wished to, what is the path that he's going to take to become a billionaire. So super interesting episode with Paul Smith. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Montclair podcast. Today we have a special guest. Today we have Paul Smith. Paul, how are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you, Chris. And thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I also want to say thank you to you because, I mean, I'm sure you're busy and I see that you're enjoying the life in Monaco, but I'm sure you've got other things to do on a Friday night.
Well, my number one calling is to try and make as many other people in the world wealthy, because I think everyone can be wealthy. Controversial statement. Yeah. But that's what I do.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
So, Paul, can you briefly summarize who you are, where you grew up, and you know what you've done professionally or personally? Because I think there's quite a few interesting facts about you, and I'd like to dive deep into all these details.
My pleasure. So, as you've already said, my name is Paul Smith, which is a blessing and a curse because there are so many Paul Smiths.
There is.
I was born in the UK. I'm half English, I'm half Irish, but Smith is the most common English surname. And Paul, when I was born, was the most common boy's name. So in my primary school class, Chris, there were 3 Paul Smiths in one class. So from a very early age, I was called the Paul Smith, and the other 2 poor boys had to be called by their second name. So how weird is that? So not a lot of people know that, but I just thought I'd share that. I spent a year in hospital at the age of 14. Happy to come back to that if you want or not.
Yeah. No, I do because I feel like it's part of your journey as well.
Yeah, a huge part. I left home at the age of 17 with 170 pounds. So let's call it 200 euros in today's money. And
or 50 euros, depends how you look at it.
Yeah. Well, I left home so long ago, there weren't any euros.
Exactly. So yeah.
It was 500 francs, let's say.
Yeah.
So I promised myself and my parents and everyone around me that before the age of 18, I would buy my first property. Everyone thought I was mad, but I did. And really my life changed because of that one decision. I've been in property. I'm 60 years old now. So I've been in property for 43 years and I've never looked back. And I do lots of other things now. But all of the other things I do are because of that wealth that I managed to accumulate in property. And my core message to anyone and everyone that's listening is everything is possible. Absolutely everything is possible. You just have to have the courage to follow your dreams. And a great way to get the money together to help you to do whatever it is you want to do is property. That's it. Simple as that.
Yeah. Do you wanna tell us a little bit about what you're doing today, because it's directly linked to property and investment, I believe.
Yeah. So I normally say to people, You only really discover what it is that you were born to do when you don't have to do anything. So just to explain what I mean there, most people work because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, just think about the language we use. Why are you doing that? Well, I have to. Well, if you have to, it doesn't mean you want to, does it? So the place I know best, because I spent so many years there, is the United Kingdom. But this will be similar for most European countries, if not the world. 85% of people don't like their job, don't like their boss, don't think they get paid enough. And I've got a simple expression. It's 40, 40, 40. Most people spend 40 hours a week for 40 years of their life doing something they don't want to do, so they can retire on 40% of what they couldn't afford to live on in the first place. And that's most people's lives. And what I discovered when I got to the point that I had enough money that I didn't have to do anything is that my calling, my reason for existence is to help other people realize that they can become wealthy too. And maybe it's just worth dwelling for a second, Chris, on the difference between being rich and being wealthy.
Yeah, this is something I wanted to touch on because it really resonated with me, and I realized this. I don't know if you know, but I used to work on yachts because I was a chef by trade. I worked in Michelin star restaurant. I did, many years, and I was attracted to the yachting industry. And this is what I've done for the past 17 years of my chef's career. Okay. And I was attracted to this for the money. And I was chasing the numbers on the paycheck. And I realized that at the end I left, I actually reached the level that I wanted, that I was aiming for 15 years back. And I reached that level and I left and I gave that away just to be able to be free and to be home with my daughter. And I am now, aiming at different things than money. And I really understand what you're saying by, money is not wealth. It's two different things.
No, beautiful. And well done you. And an example that I normally use, because so many people know about soccer and professional footballers, and many people will know about the Premier League in the UK. So let's say that you play for Chelsea or Arsenal or one of the big teams, Liverpool, someone like that. These days it's not unusual for a player to earn perhaps £500,000 a week. So that's like £26 million a year. Or if we round it up to euros, maybe 30 million euros a year, something like that. It's not okay. You've got to be really good, but it's not unusual if you're really good to earn that kind of money, and probably more with sponsorship and whatever. Yeah. But if you then say that a Premier League footballer at the top of their game has got maybe 10 years, that means over those 10 years, they've earned something like 300 million or 1/3 of a billion. I mean, this is like the GDP of a country. That's not a salary. That's insane. But very often they're not rich. They're not wealthy. Rather, they're rich. Because the shocking statistic is this. If you're a Premier League footballer, within 1 year of finishing playing, 40% of them are bankrupt. Wow. Not hard up, not finding it difficult to live the life they used to live, but they're bankrupt. They've got no money. They've got their house taken away. They get divorced. They become alcoholics because they don't know how to handle money. Yeah. So rich for me is a temporary state where you exchange your life for money. And that's just a different form of slavery. So I don't know if you've ever heard the expression that a salary or a wage check is something they give you to forget your dreams. It's like it's like an anesthetic for your ambition.
That hurts.
It does, doesn't it? And wealthy, on the other hand, is you're not selling your life for money. What you're doing is something you love. And to be truly wealthy, where you don't have to do anything, you have to have some assets. In my case, originally it was houses or factories or just property, offices, so commercial property, residential property. where you've done the work to get the asset and it then pays you for doing nothing. So a wealthy person is someone that receives money in exchange for none of their time.
Yeah.
And when you are wealthy, then you can do whatever you want. And someone's level of wealth, someone's income could be incredibly low by many standards. But if they're happy with that,
Yeah.
well, they've achieved wealth. Because there was that terrible news of Myanmar and Thailand with the earthquakes today.
Yeah.
And one of the buildings that collapsed was a big temple with a lot of monks in it.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to have a lot of money to be a monk, but you don't do that because someone's paying you for it, do you? So when I saw the news today and the temple collapsing, whatever, I was just thinking, wow. But I was thinking two things. I was thinking, I really hope they're okay and there's not too many passed away. But what I was also thinking is, if today was your last day on earth, but you were doing something you really love to do, what better way is there to live life? I mean,
this is a very good question that sometimes people forget to ask themselves. It's like, if you're not doing this for the money, if you, like you say, if it's your last day, your last week, your last month, what do you do? Mm-hmm. And it's something you don't maybe have the time to stop and think about, but it's a very good question to ask yourself.
Anyway, so okay, what should we talk about next?
Okay, look, you mentioned that you went to hospital when you were 14 years old. Can you expand on this a little bit, because I think it's important.
Yes, and these things are all connected. They all make me who I am. So
that's exactly why I want to know this, right. Because it's
so at the age of 14. I developed this thing called Crohn's disease. It took them a few months to find it out. And for any of your listeners that don't know what Crohn's disease is, it's an autoimmune disease, which means your body attacks itself. Your immune system attacks some of you. And in the case of Crohn's disease, it's your digestive system, it's your gut. So I was put into hospital, a few operations, trying to find out what it was. They thought it was appendicitis, thought it was other things, and it turned out I had a thing called Crohn's disease. And I had it pretty badly. And just to also explain, I grew very fast. By the time I was 11, I was 6 foot tall. So to translate that into metric,
in meters,
183.
Wow. So that speaks to me more than the first unit of measurement.
Yeah, sorry, that's a British imperial thing. So I haven't grown a millimeter. See, I'll stay in metric now. Since the age of 11. Now, why is that relevant? That's relevant because I was physically too big at the age of 14 to go into a children's ward. So even though I was a child, I was put onto a male surgical ward in the hospital. So I was surrounded by men.
Yeah.
As a 14-year-old who was confused, who was in quite a lot of pain. And during that year, during my 14th year, I was actually in hospital for nearly 15 months, so just over a year.
Wow.
I had many, many operations, and I'm not going to get gruesome, but the thing called resections. So they just take a piece of your bowel out and stitch the two ends together.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, hygiene then, because I'm talking 46 years ago now, wasn't what it is now. Jesus, I'm getting old. That's nearly half a century.
I know.
So I developed things like, not on purpose, obviously accidentally as a result of the surgery, things like gangrene. So I had some operations to fix that were life-threatening. And I'm not particularly religious, but I was brought up as a Catholic. And I was told at one stage that I wasn't going to survive the operation and I needed to say goodbye to everybody, to my parents, to my brothers, my sisters, and whatever. And if you're a very, very unwell Catholic, the priest comes and he gives you the last rites before you die. Mm-hmm. So I had the last rites when I was 14. So, and thankfully, doctors and priests can be wrong because I'm still here. But
they can.
So that's a good thing sometimes. But what did that teach me, Chris? It taught me that every single day is a gift. I don't try and live every day like it's my last. I try and live every minute like it's my last. Because you know what? One day I'm going to be right.
Yeah.
And what was that fantastic film about the bucket list? The two American actors that had the bucket list, and they had terminal cancer, and they want to do all the things on their bucket list before they died.
Maybe the bucket list.
Could be the bucket list. So one of the things I encourage people to do is write their bucket list now and start doing the things they want to do now. Because how do you know you're going to wake up tomorrow? How do you know that you're going to be able to do something next year? So whatever it is that's on your bucket list, get it written down and get it done, is my advice. And a huge part of that came from that experience when I was 14, because I didn't think I was going to make 15. And every year between 14, 15, 16, 17, having said I'm not particularly religious, I would literally pray to God and say, I just want to ask one thing this year. It's I get another birthday. That's all I used to ask for. And then my job was to make the most of that time that I was given. And so some people say, why are you in such a hurry all the time? Why do you never stop? You're 60, for goodness sake. Why don't you just retire? No, I'm not going to retire. My retirement plan is very simple. It's called death. So I'm sorry to be morbid, but at some point, I'm not going to be able to do the things I do. And so crazily, even though I've had Crohn's disease for 46 years, I'm on no medication. I'm under no treatment. I've got no therapies.
Diet? Any special diet or?
Nothing. I'm a medical mystery. And one of my doctors last year, he said to me, because I still do go for checkups just to make sure I'm not falling to bits.
Yeah.
And he said, Paul, I've got 5 other patients, very similar age to you, similar conditions, similar disease. All 5 of them are on permanent bed rest. You, on the other hand, despite the fact you've got the same blood tests, you've got the same, all of your tests, all of your blood chemistry, everything is the same. It tells me you've got the same problems as them. You're running around the world like a crazy guy doing mad stuff, and they can't even get out of bed. And for many, many years now, I have known for a fact that most of what we do has got nothing to do with our physical body and everything to do with our mindset.
I was just going to say that the mind is a powerful tool.
It's massive. And so part of my calling is to try and share that and to try and make as many people aware of it as possible, because Nelson Mandela said this, didn't he? He said that everything is impossible until someone does it.
Yeah.
And if you think back to, I don't know what your reference point would be, but for me, Roger Bannister ran the 4-minute mile. He was so everyone thought it wasn't possible to run 1 mile in 4 minutes. He did it, and hundreds of thousands of people around the world can do it now.
Yeah.
Everyone used to believe it was impossible. So that's the key word, belief. And my first job was making cars. I'm an engineer, so I used to make car engines. I used to work for Ford. And Henry Ford, the founder of Ford's, I'm not that old, I never knew him, but he always said, and I think it's so true, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. That's it. If you think you can or if you think you can't, you're probably right.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. This is definitely something I agree with. You are what you say you are.
Yes.
And people don't realize this, unfortunately. But like you say, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you are absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, so you spent a year, almost 15 months in the hospital.
Yeah.
After you left the hospital, did you go to university or did you start working straight away?
Okay, so I started work at 17, and I started university at 17. I've always been fairly fortunate that I'm academic. I did well in exams, so I was always 1 year above where I was supposed to be.
Yeah,
I was always with children a year older than me at school.
Are you talking about before you got diagnosed or after?
All the time.
All the time.
So
okay.
In the UK, you would normally leave school at 18, but I left school at 17 because I was 1 year above.
Okay.
Both of my parents were teachers, but my mum had given up work when I was born to look after us. So she was a housewife, homemaker, which meant that my mum, my dad, and me and my 3 brothers and sisters, we were being brought up on one teacher's salary. So we never had any money.
Yeah.
And this was 1982. when Mrs. Thatcher was in power in the UK, and she stopped all the student loans, she stopped all the grants. So if you wanted to go to university, you had to have money. You could not go to university unless you had money. But my parents didn't have enough money to send me, so I didn't even ask them. I went and got a sponsored degree. I was sponsored by the Ford Motor Company to go to university. So they paid me to go to. So each year I would do 6 months at Ford's and 6 months. So 6 months working in a factory and 2 terms at college. But that first year is the year that I decided I was going to go and buy a flat, buy an apartment in London.
That first year?
Yeah. So how crazy is this? I left home with £170 to go and do a degree that I couldn't afford to do. I convinced there were 300 people that applied for the one position with Ford's. So I had to go and do better than 299 people or 300 people in this interview. And when I was working for Ford's in the time that I was working in my factory time, in my factory 6 months, I was doing 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, 1 week, and then 12 hours nights the next week. So I was doing 84 hours a week of shift work, days, nights, days, nights, days, nights. And I got paid for that.
Yeah.
But I was determined to get a house. So I got another job. And I used to go and work at this other job for another 20 hours a week. That's 104. And then I asked myself this, I don't know if you've ever asked yourself this question, Chris, how can I live for nothing? Because I didn't want to give all this money away for, to rent a flat. And I was trying to save up to buy my own house, buy my own property. So I saw an advert in the paper because there was no internet then. I couldn't go on Google because it didn't exist. Yeah. It was a physical newspaper. And it was like, if you're not looking for something, you'll never see it. So I'd ask myself the question, how can I live for nothing? And this advert popped out in the jobs available section. And it said, no salary, 20 hours work a week for free accommodation, free bills and free food. And what it was a big country house, grand English manor house. And they put me in the servants' quarters. The chef used to feed me for free, whatever I wanted. But I had to do 20 hours a week, cutting the grass, cleaning the swimming pool, cleaning the tennis court, whatever they told me to do. Sometimes they used to dress me up, in a nice suit and whatever, and I had to hand out the drinks at their receptions or whatever.
As the young butler.
I was a servant. So I was actually working 124 hours a week, 84 hours at Ford's, 20 hours at my second job, which was in a shop, and 20 hours there. So, and then the other 44 hours a week, so it's 168 hours in a week, if anyone didn't know. Yeah. I was sleeping, and that was it. That was my life for a year. But at the end of that first year, I managed to buy my first little apartment, which was very run down, and I lived in it, and I did it up for £9,000. So I bought my first property for £9,000 in London. And when I tell people that today, they're like, what? You can't, that's about 3 months rent. And I bought a property for £9,000 and it's now worth, I don't know, £600,000-700,000.
Yeah. So why was it important for you to buy your own place? Because you didn't have to. You could have found a rent somewhere, and
yeah, I could have done. But I had seen my granddad, or both my English granddad and my Irish granddad. I'd seen them both make a lot of money from property. So my English granddad, for instance, was he was away all the time during World War II, and again, he was in Asia Pacific fighting the Japanese. And because there was no internet, he couldn't send any money home. So, and when he went away, he was a sergeant. And when he came back 6 years later, he was a full colonel, which is very senior in the British Army. So he'd got 6 years of back pay at this very senior grade. And so in a place called Essex, which is a county adjacent to London, he bought a big field, and then him and all his Royal Engineering mates took it in turns, and they would go and build a house each. And my granddad lived in that house that he built until he died. and he died at 93, so he lasted a long time. But sometime after he bought the bungalow, the local authorities purchased half of his land to build a housing estate on. So he built his own home. He then sold off land that he had, and he was very wealthy. And my Irish granddad did the same thing. It's not the same thing. He was the village auctioneer. So my Irish granddad, by the time he passed away, had 2 pubs, a petrol station, a pig farm, a stud farm, a horse breeding farm, mountain. Both of those guys, both my granddads, got to be wealthy by most people's. I mean, maybe not Monaco wealthy, but wealthy by most people's standards. And then I saw what happened with the next generation. That wealth was then passed down to the next generation, so to my parents' generation. Now, my mum is one of 9. My dad is only one of 2, but that wealth then got distributed to 11 children in total. Boom, they vaporized it. It just went. So I was clear that what my granddads had done was very smart. What wasn't very smart was what the next generation did with it. Now, I completely and totally love all of my family and my relations. That doesn't mean I think they're good with money.
But it comes down to education, don't you think? It comes down to what are we teaching our kids, and are we teaching our kids anything about financial
100%.
knowledge?
And I don't know what you did of that at school, but for me at school,
none of it. I've done. Look, Paul. This is the same thing. I spent, like I said to you, I spent about 18 years, maybe almost 19, if you count, all the season here and there on yachts where I earn good money. I'm not saying I didn't pay tax, because I did pay taxes. So the tax-free industry that is yachting doesn't exist unless you live in the right country. Yeah. But this is absolutely true that no one's taught me about how to save money, or even that I should save. But if I had saved 10%, 20% of all of it, I would be a lot more financially free now. Sure. Well, look, I had a good time. Don't get me wrong. Sure. I went to many restaurants and I traveled the world and I had some nice holidays and I really enjoyed. So it was great. Yeah. And also it's not too late. I can still, change now. But definitely in France, I grew up in France, and in France there was I don't think there is I don't have any recollection of any financial education. No. And my parents were the same as what you mentioned, which is, they also worked hard and they worked during the week and on the weekend, and, to try to get a bit more, food on the table and take care of the kids. And they built a small little house, and it was great. And we grew up in a village. But apart from that, there was no mention of, you should save 10 or 20% of every income you have and put it aside for, I don't know what your philosophy is in terms of what rate you should save per month, but I know there was nobody told me that, basically.
Yeah. And it's the same for me, by the way. And I don't know any countries, apart from maybe Monaco, where wealth education, financial education, the difference between good debt and bad debt is actively taught. I've never seen it, which is why I do what I do. That's what I do. I teach about wealth. I teach about money. I teach about credit. I teach about good debt, bad debt. But to answer your question, Chris, yes, I do. I believe that all human beings are tolerant financially to plus minus 10%. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, let's say someone, just pick a random figure. Let's say someone's earning 4,000 euros a month. If somebody needs to, they can adjust that, and almost everybody will live their lifestyle to 4,000 euros a month.
Yeah, 100%.
The right car, the right restaurants, the right social life, the right apartment, whatever. They'll just spend the money they've got. I believe all of us, to begin with, should save 10% a month. So that means my advice to anyone listening to this that's thinking, actually, I could do with understanding a bit more about this, is as soon as you get paid, take 10% and put it into a separate savings account. Ideally, somewhere where it's difficult to get.
Yeah.
So you can't instantly spend it. And don't wait until the end of the month and say, I'll just live my life. I'll just do what I need to do. And I'll save. No, you won't. You'll turn it into pizzas or handbags or shoes or whatever it is.
It's a good advice. Make sure it comes out first on top. Correct. As soon as you get the money in.
and try and put it into something that's difficult. So many people say to me, well, if I can't go and buy a house, because no one can buy a house with 10% of their monthly salary. I'd say put it in something like gold. So just buy gold, because if you've got it in a gold account, you can't just spend it. It takes days to get it back. And then, so that's number one. Number two, every 3 months, increase the amount that you're saving by another 10%. Every 3 months. So in my example, someone's earning 4,000, they save 400. After 3 months, they've got to up that to 440. After another 3 months, they've got to up that to 484. And the reason I say 10% and then increase it by 10% every 3 months is that human beings are adaptable. And what people will do is either reduce their spending or increase their earnings, one of the two, or both, maybe a bit of both. Keep doing that until you've got 6 months living expenses in the bank. This is my golden rule. And I'll go off and then I'll come back again if it's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
I believe money is like oxygen. Until I said oxygen, were you even thinking, Chris, of is there enough oxygen in that studio, or are you going to asphyxiate and you're going to die because there's no oxygen? Of course, you didn't even think about it, did you? But if you were trapped underground and the water was coming up and there was just a limited amount of oxygen, you wouldn't think about anything else except oxygen, would you? It's the only thing in the world if there isn't enough of it. And money is like oxygen in the sense that you're always stressed by it, you're always thinking about it, you're always consumed by it if you don't have enough of it. As soon as you've got plenty, which for me is 6 months living expenses. So, for this example, let's say it was costing somebody 3,000 euros a month to live. Their world will change when they've got 18,000 euros of savings, because they will think more clearly. They won't be stressed by money. You literally see them. They stand up straighter, the shoulders go back, and their horizon shifts. They're not looking down here. Have I got enough money for today? They're looking out there. What's next? And they're not worried about doing some crazy trade on cryptocurrency or something where, I hope or buying a lottery ticket for the Euro Millions or whatever, because, this is going to save me. No, I don't need that. I've got a long-term plan. And when you've got 6 months savings, you should learn to invest, in my view.
So you think you should invest your 6 months saving, or you should keep that as your safe reserve and then invest the next monthly saving?
Yeah. Because you've now earned the right to invest, but you still need that. You still need that safety money. You still need that war chest in case something goes wrong. Because stuff does go wrong in people's lives, and that's what it's for. There was a study in the UK 2 years ago now, and the government asked people, how much emergency money have you got? And the lowest level was £100. So 120
Let's
euros.
say 100 euros.
Yeah, 100 euros, same thing.
It doesn't matter. I think it's
25%. 1 in 4 in the UK could not come up with 100 euros if their life depended on it. Couldn't do it. Impossible. Couldn't do it. The number one cause of death in the world, bar nothing, is stress. Stress causes heart attacks. It causes every kind of psychological disorder. It causes blood pressure. And the number one cause of stress is money, or more specifically, lack of money.
Yeah.
So get a 6 month buffer in the bank. You'll have it. You'll live longer. In fact, I did a video. I remember exactly where I was. I was at the Villa Refrusi on Cap Ferrat. And again, the UK government had just published a document that said for the lowest demographic, their life expectancy was shortened, lowest financial demographic, the life expectancy was shortened by 33 years.
Oh, this is crazy.
And there's there's a very, very poignant and powerful example of that. I lived for almost 20 years in Scotland, and the city in the UK with the lowest life expectancy is Glasgow. If you're a male, your life expectancy is 55. And I lived 30 miles outside of Glasgow in a very affluent village on the sea. So me, the Atlantic, Canada is the next thing, 3,000 miles away. Beautiful. And almost metronomically, every mile you went out of Glasgow on the railway track, life expectancy went up by 1 year. And in my village, average life expectancy was 90 years old.
Wow.
And that's the difference money makes. Monaco has the highest life expectancy in the world. Full stop.
Yeah.
It's the difference money makes. And part of that is about you can afford the best medical care, but it's mainly not that. That might extend your life by a few months or a few weeks or something. It's mainly the fact that people here can afford to eat properly. So they've got, I call it the 3 C's. And I know you'll approve of at least one of them as a chef. It's the climate, it's the culture, and it's the cuisine.
All 3. I approve all 3.
But the only reason that people here can enjoy those things is because they got money.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So now, Paul, you talking about money and investment. So you have your own business, and you're basically teaching people how to invest and how to become financially free.
Yeah.
Is that correct? That's how I would present it.
Fair description. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the business I spend most of my time in. My wife, Annika, and myself have actually got 17 businesses.
You have 17 businesses right now?
Yeah. Well,
okay. Interesting.
Yes.
We're going to do a little bit longer than an hour, I think.
No, let me give you my definition of what is a business. A business is a profitable commercial enterprise that works without you.
I'm still interested in all 17 businesses.
All right. Well, here's the thing, Chris, if it works without you, you can have as many as you want.
Yeah, true.
And if it doesn't work without you, that's not a business, that's a job.
Yep, 100%.
That's in my head.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Sir Richard Branson has 600 businesses.
Yeah.
You can have as many as you want if you don't have to work in them.
Yeah.
So the rest are something to do with property investment companies, project management companies. We own what we would call in the UK an estate agent. So most of the world would call it a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
We own a legal firm, so solicitors. So it's all to do with property, except education, which is still kind of to do with property because one of the things I teach about is property.
Yeah.
And that's really where I live. But I don't run the business. I've got a managing director. I've got a chief exec. I've got 100 people in the team. And I'm just one of the teams. I'm the educator. I just teach.
So it's an education business. It's not a financial investment advice business, or is it both?
No, it's education. It's not like, oh, come on, Chris, come on this course. I'll teach you something, and then I'll sell you something.
Yeah.
No, for me, that's a fundamental conflict of interest. If I'm being your teacher or your mentor, and I'm also telling you invest in my company, that's a massive conflict of interest. I can't say that. So if the closest we would get to that is if somebody said, I want to buy a house or a flat or an apartment or something, I would say, well, go and see my real estate brokerage over there. But buy it or not, I don't care. It's just, so for me, no, I'm an educator. I teach people how to become wealthy. And wealth for me, if you recollect, is assets that give you income in exchange for none of your time. And I teach people how to set up businesses so that they can have a commercial enterprise that doesn't require any of their time. So,
yeah.
And that's what I do. And that's called Touchstone Education. And I absolutely love it.
And you have a YouTube channel. You've published a book.
3 books. Yep.
3 books.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the biggest the system that you prefer the most? Do you like to do videos on your YouTube channel, or do you do one-on-one call with people that need to learn, or what's your favorite?
I used to do one-to-one mentoring.
Yeah.
Many years ago. But if I want to have the biggest impact in the world, I have to do one-to-many. So everything these days is online. Most of my courses are pre-recorded. So we've we've got this educational software called Kajabi.
Yep.
So I've got 18 different courses talking about either pure business, raising money, residential property, commercial property, these various courses, but they're all recorded. So people can, and they typically take between 2 and 3 days to do the full course as a client. I update them roughly annually, but I don't do it for the sake of it. I do it because there's a tax change or a legal change or something like that. So people can watch it with me live if they want to, and that tends to be quite popular. But no, to give you a feel for the size of the business now, I mean, it's just grown massively. We have 4 to 6 major events per month, which are online 2-day training events, which is kind of an introduction to the whole business of becoming wealthy. Funnily enough, it's called Wealth Through Property, which kind of does what it says on the tin. And typically we'll have 500 people at each one of those.
Amazing.
But we also do quite a lot of free content, so Instagram, TikTok, but also 1-hour webinars where people can just get a feel for what we're all about. And on a daily basis, we get between 1,200 and 1,800 new people into our database. So our database is in the millions. We've got.
So what's your audience? Who is the person that is reaching out to you? Are they all different, or are they all?
Well, clearly they're all different. We're all different, aren't we? We're all unique, individual, fabulous human.
But you know what I mean? Are they younger people starting their career, or are they midlife couple that want to know what to do with their money that they have saved a little bit of it, and they just want to do the right thing?
All of the above. If I put the major clusters, so yes, we've got teenagers, 12-year-olds at one extreme, through to people in their late 80s at the other extreme, that have actually become, full-time clients. You do get quite a lot of people in their 20s and 30s that are very ambitious. They're feeling frustrated. They know there's another way. They hate the idea of doing the job that they're doing until they're 65, 70 and they just die, so that's one bunch of people. Quite a few people in their 30s and 40s. And then I would say a big bulge of people in their 50s to early 60s that are thinking, I've done my career. I still haven't got any money. What am I going to do for the next 40 years? And I can see my kids are struggling with, the cost to live in and whatever. I really need to change my life so that I can help the people around me. So I suppose if you're going to identify 2 clusters, it would be maybe 25 to 35 with lots of ambition, lots of energy, a desire to be different. And then let's say 50 to 65 who are approaching the end of their career and they're saying, well, and typically they've done okay. They probably own their own house. They probably haven't got any investment property. They probably don't have any other investments. And I'm sorry, I couldn't tell you for France. I don't know, but I do know for the UK that the average person, as they approach retirement, gets a state pension of £18,000 if they're a couple. And on top of that, they've got a private pension, which is typically £3,000 or £4,000 a year. So if you put the two together,
it's not much.
It's somewhere between 25 and 30,000 euros for a couple. And I know well enough, because I've been down here in the south of France for almost 5 years now, I can live far more cheaply in the south of France than I could live in the UK. So if you're sat listening to this in the south, anywhere in France or mainland Europe, Europe is cheaper than the UK.
Yeah. And this is why there is a lot of expat or people that move from the UK to Portugal, to Spain, to, like you say, France.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Why not?
Well, of course. But it's harder now because some clever people decided on this thing called Brexit, which wasn't very smart, but, whatever. But my lovely mother made that not an issue for me because she's Irish. So I've got a British passport and an Irish passport. So
great.
I'm British and European, which I'm delighted about.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, I wanted to, you mentioned something about the first place you bought, the first house or
Yes,
apartment. Was it a house or an apartment? It was
it
an
was an
apartment.
apartment. It was
It was an,
it, specifically it was a house that had been split into two apartments. I bought the top flat, the top apartment.
penthouse.
No,
The £9,000 penthouse. No, but look,
9,000.
my question was, Paul, do you feel like today, because this was a way for one of the few past generations to become wealthy was to buy property.
Mhm.
Do you feel like today millennials have the same opportunity?
I actually think it's easier,
Yeah.
a lot easier. And again, pardon my ignorance, but I couldn't tell you about France because I've never tried to do this in France.
Let's just say in Europe in general, or even in the UK market. I
Well,
think they're not too far off from each other anyway.
okay, so in the UK market, the average house price today is €300,000. But my first property wasn't an average house because an average house is detached with a garage and whatever. So
Yeah.
it's still possible to get an apartment. Mine was just a one-bedroom apartment. I mean, not in London, but close to London or in the north part of the UK. You can still get one for £100,000. 120,000 get you a nice one. 150,000 get you a very nice one. I had to do all of that in cash. I wasn't old enough to get a mortgage. So today in the UK, if you want to go and buy a house to live in, you only have to come up with a 5% deposit. So if you're buying a property for 100,000, you only need 5,000. And I do know about buying a house in France because I have one, not here in Monaco, but I've got one in Tille-sur-Mer. And so my notary fees and all of the taxes and everything cost me about 8% on that one. But in the UK, as a first-time buyer, if your property is less than 300,000, your taxes and fees are zero.
That's great.
Yeah, you will have to pay for, we would call it a lawyer or a solicitor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a notaire, but not exactly the same. And it will probably cost you about £1,000, €1,000, but you can add that to your mortgage if you want. So in the UK, if you've got 5, 6, 7, £8,000, you can go and buy a house or buy an apartment. And what I did with mine is I lived in it for 18 months and I refurbished it and made it look nice, but I did all the work myself and I didn't spend much money on doing that. And 18 months after I bought it, I sold it and I sold it for 33,000. So I made 23,000 profit. And again, in the UK, if you do that, no tax of any kind. There's no tax if you sell where you live. Now, I know there is in France and many other countries, unless you live there for 20 years or whatever. But in the UK, if you live there for one day, there's no tax. You can just, so a great strategy in the UK is to buy a house, live in it, do it up and sell it. And I did that 4 times in my early 20s. And you can imagine if you just put all that money into the next house, do it up, sell it for even more, do it again, do it again. So by the time I was 28, as well as having properties, I was a cash millionaire just by doing that. So can you do that in the UK today? Yes. Can you do that if you're not in the UK? Yes. Because if you lived in Berlin, for example, Berlin property prices very high, also have rent controls, so not the best place to invest in property. But if you're a young German, can you set up a UK company? And by the way, it costs £50. So you could do it tomorrow, Chris, online. £50, €60. You're now the proud owner of a UK company. It can now go, not you, it. So you could be 100% owner of it. It can now go buy properties and get mortgages in the UK. So all the things I'm talking about, anyone can do. Doesn't matter if they live in the UK or not.
Okay, that's a good advice for everyone that is listening. I'll look into it.
Well, I would say 40% of my education company is called Touchstone Education. 40% of our customers are not from the UK. They're from Switzerland, they're from Thailand, they're from the US. the majority of them want to invest in the UK, but they're not from the UK. They don't live in the UK.
Yeah,
Scandinavia, it's almost impossible to do property investment in Scandinavia.
it is. It's very, very pricey, and
Well,
there's
for that
not enough
reason,
properties
and
in the center of the cities. Of course, there is
well,
outside, but
you've got so much public control, you've got so much public housing. It is seriously difficult to buy property in Scandinavia unless you want to live in it.
yeah.
So Swedes, Norwegians, Finns, they're all investing in the UK because they can't do it where they live. Danes as well.
Yeah, it is. But you're right. I understand what you're saying. I understand that there is still a way to do it. It may be not, you might not find as cheaper of properties as there was back in the days, but there is a way. And as long as you get a mortgage, I guess you can access it.
It's all relative as well, Chris, because property prices have gone up a lot, but so have wages. And I don't know, but I mean, you got to put Monaco isn't. Well, Monaco is physically in France, but it's not in France.
It is its own,
so
little paradise.
I'd have to be. I couldn't hand on heart say that any child could do this in Monaco. Not true.
Yeah.
You need serious money in Monaco, but you don't have to live very far from Monaco. So give you an example. To work in Monaco, you have to live in the surrounding areas of France or in Imperia in Italy. Mm-hmm. There are 38 villages and towns in Italy where if you move there, you can buy a house for €1. And they will pay you up to €35,000 as a grant if you live there with your family. Do you think people know that generally?
I've heard of it, but you're right. Maybe people are not listening.
I mean, come on. If anyone out there is listening and they need €1, I'll lend it to them. You can pay me back when you get your €35,000 grant, for goodness sake. It costs you more in petrol or diesel to get there than it will actually to buy it.
It does. It does. That's a good point, Paul. You're right. Paul, I wanted to touch on the YouTube channel.
Yes.
I watched a few of your videos that are super well made, and you've done a bunch of them.
Thank you.
How do you deal with people, angry comments and people that are just, what we call the keyboard warriors?
The haters, yes.
The haters. What do you feel about that?
I love them. I literally love them. I didn't always do this, but I recognize that it's not about me, it's about them. They're having
100%.
They're having a bad day, they're having a bad life. And I literally love them. I'll put a little love heart on it and I'll try and be supportive of whatever their issue is. I don't know who it was. Somebody much cleverer than me said it was actually a French philosopher. It was actually a French revolutionary philosopher. So you can tell me who this was.
No, I can't. Let me ask ChatGPT.
There was never a statue erected to a critic. Was it Voltaire?
Let's say it was him.
Maybe. Someone like that. And what he meant was, what I think he meant was, in order to be criticized, you have to be doing something. And if you do something, you will probably get criticized, whatever it is. And I love Formula One. And my prime example of this is Lewis Hamilton. I've followed Lewis Hamilton since 2007. I think he's a brilliant driver. So
he's your neighbor as well?
Almost, yes. I can see his apartment out of my window as I look over Toto Wolff's apartment. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is this: he's a 7-time world champion. He's a really nice guy. He loves dogs even. But if he posts something, he'll get 50% praise and 50% criticism. He gets criticism about his fashion choices. I mean, sorry, he's a Formula One driver. Why do you care what he wears? He gets criticism about his sexual orientation. A load of people, what century are people living in here? I mean, why does it, even if it was true, why does it matter? And he's posting nothing about that. He's posting about something else. And the number one thing you see is kind of essentially homophobia on there.
Yeah.
And I always think to myself, I could only wish that I'd made as big an impact on the world as Lewis Hamilton. He is far more reach than me, far more impact, and he gets far more hate than me. So, like, loads more hate. But since I started really loving people and genuinely loving people and wishing them all the best, the amount of hate that I've got has nosedived. So I'm not saying I don't get any, but I used to get a lot. Now it's small.
Yeah.
And it tends to be about something that, to be honest, I can't do much about. I get criticized for my appearance. Well, I've only got one head. It's like, people say to me, and this is supposed to be abusive. I don't think it's abusive. People talk about my teeth. Like, well, okay, fine. They're my teeth. At least they're mine. So, and for some reason, people quite often, as another Formula One fan, people quite often compare me to Gordon Ramsay, which is okay for me. But somehow that's supposed to be a term of abuse. And I actually met him last year. I don't know him. I've only met him once at the Austin Grand Prix. And we took some selfies together and we did some cross-posting on Instagram and Twitter. And when I told him that people thought I looked like him, he looked at me and said, "You do." But I mean, what there are many comments that you could take as abuse, but they're not really meant to be abusive.
Yeah. No, but I'm with you when you say that it's often about the person posting. It's not about you. And it's maybe just, their way to express themselves, like you say, bad day, bad time, bad.
Well, or it's maybe a misunderstanding. Because the other thing I get, Chris, which is fair enough, I understand it, is back in the UK, there's another Paul Smith. There's millions of Paul. Well,
there's a lot of you. There's a lot of you guys.
Hundreds of thousands of Paul Smiths, maybe not millions. But there's another Paul Smith who was also in property, born the same year as me. One of my middle names, my full name is Paul Benedict David Smith. His name is Paul David Smith, same birth year. And he's a crook. He stole hundreds of thousands of pounds from servicemen, military personnel, through a letting agency. So he's kind of also in the property sphere.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Oh, it's disgrace what you did." And well, it wasn't me. It was the other guy. And here's the difference. I've never been to jail. He's been in jail for 10 years so far. So it's quite difficult to make YouTube and Instagram from prison. But
there's not many. I don't know why.
No, funny that. So sometimes it's just a genuine mistake. They think I'm someone else.
Yeah.
But mostly it's they're having a bad day.
Yeah. No, I understand. But I think you have the right attitude toward it. Ignore it and send them love and just, like their comment. And
that's it. That's what
maybe they'll feel better afterward. So Paul, you are, so you're based in Monaco now.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You so what steps are you taking toward becoming a billionaire, or is this your goal?
Yes, unashamedly. Okay. I've got, I don't know loads of billionaires. I know a few billionaires quite well. I would call them friends. And there's one billionaire in particular, a guy called John Caldwell. I don't know if you know who he is. Got quite a large super yacht called Titania. Here he is. This is his book.
John Caldwell. Okay.
He's worth about 4.5 billion, I think. He's a good friend. And he made all his money with mobile phones. He ran the biggest mobile phone distribution shops and repairs and way back in the early 2000s in the UK. It was called Phones for You.
Yep.
And he sold it. I think it was 2004 for 1.4 billion or something like that. And so he's still in business, but his main thing is philanthropy. And he and others like him really inspire me. He's joined something called the Giving Pledge.
Yeah.
So if you join, I don't know if you know what the Giving Pledge is, or if you listen.
I know, but you can explain, because I think it's very interesting and it's very important.
Yeah,
especially if this is something you want to do. I think it's worth talking about.
It is what I want to do, and it's why I want to do it. Because you're not allowed to join the Giving Pledge until you're a billionaire. So to get into the club, you got to be a billionaire. And
on paper or in cash?
I don't think they argue too much. Because
do they check?
I don't know. I'm going to find out, I hope.
Yeah.
But, so you get into the Giving Pledge, and these are all good questions, Chris, that I'll have to address. I'll
send you a list of questions when we finish here.
Thank you. I was just taking it far more simply. I just want to become a billionaire, and we can worry about the fine details later.
Yeah.
So you join the Giving Pledge, and it's not a charity. It's a public commitment with people like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, all these people. They're all in the Giving Pledge. And you publicly commit to give to good causes, charities of your choice, medical research, whatever it is that you want to do, at least 50% of your worth, your net worth. And in John Caldwell's case, he's committed to 70%, which is massive. Because quite often people say to me, when is enough enough? And I say never, because where I want to get to is I want to be giving away 50% plus of my net worth, because I think there's a lot of people in this world that need it. And I'm not a big fan of giving it to government, because they waste it. The taxes that I've paid over the years are just mad. The taxes that my companies continue to pay are crazy.
There's a lot of holes in the bucket, before it gets to the people on the bottom. There's not much left.
Correct. So I just want to build a massive pile of wealth, and then I want to direct it to people and causes that I believe need it. So I'm part of what John Caldwell calls the Life Changers Circle. And to be part of the Life Changers Circle, you have to give at least $1 million to charities. So I've done that, but I'm not at the stage where I can give 500 million yet, but I'm working on it.
Okay. Do you think it's important for you to surround yourself with other billionaires to become a billionaire?
Yes. Dead simple. There's various versions of this. People sometimes call it standing on the shoulders of giants. Some people say, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. My personal favorite is your network is your net worth. Mm-hmm. And one of my very good friends, unfortunately passed away a couple of weeks ago, a guy called Eddie Jordan. I don't know if he's absolutely fantastic guy.
Can you remind who Eddie Jordan was? For the one that don't know?
For anyone that doesn't know, Eddie Jordan had a Formula One team, Jordan F1. He sold it. But before he sold it, he gave Michael Schumacher his first drive. So he discovered Michael Schumacher, but this is so typically Eddie. Nobody knows this. So Eddie was a driver down at a Grand Prix. There's another story that I won't go into too far, but one of his drivers was a bit of a naughty boy. He had been out drinking and fighting and got put in prison. So Eddie was a driver down. And Michael Schumacher at that time was a Mercedes reserve driver. And this is so typically Eddie. Eddie goes to Mercedes because he quite likes Michael Schumacher as a driver and says, I might be able to give Michael a seat for this race. What do you think? And Mercedes said, brilliant. And Eddie said, yeah. He said, and I'll do it for a very reasonable rate. He got Mercedes to pay him $150,000 to allow Michael Schumacher to drive in his first Formula One race. That guy was just a genius. He would get anyone to pay for anything. I've never seen anything like it, but he did it with a cheeky smile.
Yeah.
So, my goodness. So Formula One, team owner, his Formula One team, Jordan F1, is now, it's passed through a couple of people, but it's now Aston Martin. So the Aston Martin team is what used to be Eddie's team when he first started, Jordan F1. But what a guy. I mean, he would count anyone from Bono. In fact, I just released this evening, Marie, his wife, kindly allowed me to release a eulogy from Eddie's funeral. So I've just released that this evening. But the guy that's done the narration and the music for it is Bono.
Wow.
From U2.
Yeah.
And this guy knew princes and kings. He was very friendly with our prince here in Monaco. I mean, obviously a strong Irish connection there from the prince as well. But what a guy. And
how did you meet him? How did you get so close to him? Because you refer to him as your mentor.
Yeah. So probably 10 years ago, a guy called Barry Grinham came on one of my property courses and signed up for some mentorship with me and the team. And he was Eddie Jordan's personal trainer. So, and Barry came to know that I love Formula One and I'm an engineer, and I think it's the peak.
Yeah, it talks to you. That was the connection, strong connection.
Yeah. So I was in Dubai, just getting dressed in the morning, getting ready to go to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And my phone went. And I don't know why, because I never answer it. But my phone just rang. And I picked it up, which I just don't do. And this Irish voice says, "It's Eddie Jordan here." I'm like, "Oh, don't be ridiculous. Stop winding me up. Get lost." And he said, No, it's Eddie Jordan. I said, "Well, you do sound like him." I said, "Where'd you get my number from?" And so Eddie Jordan phoned me. I was like, wow. But this is so typical of the guy. One of his friends was starting, Nigel, was starting a Formula One hospitality company. And he had a couple of spare tickets. So Eddie phoned me and said, "You going to the race?" I said, "Yeah." And I was just going to go sit in the grandstand. I just had some grandstand tickets. And he said, "Do you want a bit of hospitality? Free?" I said, yeah, I suppose so. I said, "But the problem is, Eddie, I'm not on my own." And he's like, "Oh, how many are you?" I said, 6. He said, "That's fine. Bring them all on." So he got us into hospitality. But what a genius move. Because Nigel had these 6 spare places because someone just cancelled.
Yeah.
I went, and I've spent a lot of money with Nigel over the last 10 years. So, but that's just who Eddie was. He would just connect people. He was the best connector in the world. Yeah. And what a guy. He's easily the best negotiator I've ever met. Easily.
So you would say, yes, the people around you are very valuable to you as a person and to your future.
Yes. And Eddie used to say this. He said, in life, you got to stop pecking with the pigeons and you got to soar with the eagles. So he was a living example of that, because he was born and brought up in Dublin. Similar circumstances to myself, no money in the family. And he had this crazy ambition. And if you surround yourself with people like that, you almost can't fail.
Yeah.
If your 5, 6, 7 closest friends, I mean, I don't know how much you're into Formula One, but you know Adrian Newey, he's quite a good designer, the best ever. I was with Eddie while he was doing the Adrian Newey negotiations between Aston Martin and Ferrari and Red Bull to get him out of there. And everyone told him, "You can't get Adrian out of Red Bull." "Oh, yes, I can. Of course I can." So that kind of mindset, never take no for an answer and everything is possible, is incredible. Absolutely. Well, it is for me anyway.
Yeah. No, it's a good story, and I'm glad you had to, you were close to him, and I look forward to see is it on your YouTube channel?
I just put it out on Instagram and TikTok tonight. It's just a 5-minute tribute.
Yeah. I will check it out. Check it out.
Please do.
Talking about Instagram, Paul, the way I discovered you was from your video. Do you know which one?
You told me. The rubbish one.
This is how I reached out to you. I was, I was just wondering about why you were putting your head in a bin.
Okay, background. In Monaco, there is only one blue tower. I live in the Tour Odeon. So
I have a few contacts in that tower. I thought it would be. When I saw the background, this is what I thought it would be.
yeah. Okay, so I had just moved from the UK. Well, I hadn't strictly. I'd been in the south of France in Tille-sur-Mer for 18 months. But I'd just moved to Monaco full time. But what I was used to was, and I guess this is normal, that we all have these bins with wheels these days, the big plastic bins with wheels. And you've maybe got two or perhaps even three, one for rubbish, one for recycling, and then sometimes one for garden waste. Well, we live 30 odd floors in the sky, so we don't have so no garden waste. But we've got two. And everywhere I've ever lived, there'd be a day of the week that you have to take the bin and put it on the street outside so that the rubbish lorry can come and collect it. So I arrive in the Tour Odeon, and there's a concert downstairs. It's incredible. You can't park your car. You stop the car, and the guy comes out to valet park your car for you. And I've got an intercom to ask him to bring it up and down for me. You then come in, and there's a full-time, there's a 24-hour caretaker, there's a 24-hour concierge. So I thought, oh, that's a good point. And I just moved in. I thought, I'll just go down and see the concierge. Went to see the concierge. I said, what day do I need to put the bins out? And he looked at me. and he had such a straight face. And I know on the inside, he must have been thinking, are you totally stupid? and he just and he responded. And he said, "Sir," he said, "we send somebody up to empty the bins twice a day. Is that not enough? We can send them more often." And I just thought, what an idiot! And can you imagine, Chris, the streets of Monaco? Well, everybody in the Tour Odeon puts their two bins out. There'd be like 300 bins on the side.
Yeah,
Monaco would stop. But I hadn't thought about that. I was just, so anyway, that's why I made this video.
I thought it was a funny video.
The rubbish thing about Monaco.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So you're promoting the 7 days a week weekend.
Yeah.
7 days weekend.
Kind
How is
of.
that going for you?
Kind of. I believe strongly that you should do what you want to do 7 days a week.
Yeah.
But weekend is probably the wrong connotation, because weekend, many people relax, they don't do too much, maybe socialize. I don't discriminate between, there's no difference to me between a Wednesday and a Saturday. They're all the same.
Yeah.
And if I want to work on a Saturday afternoon, I will. Or if I want to work at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, I will. It's about doing what I want to do when I want to do it. And specifically, it's about spending time with people that I want to spend time with, wherever in the world, whenever and however I want to.
Yeah. No, it's a good mentality. I like it. Can I ask you about your Guinness World Record?
Yes.
What is this about?
My Guinness
Can you
World
tell
Record.
us more?
You've been researching me. Okay, so I love speaking. Maybe it's because I'm half Irish, and I love public speaking. And I can't even remember, probably 8-9 years ago now, maybe more, maybe 10. A group of 4 of us decided we were going to get a Guinness World Record for public speaking. For public speaking.
Oh, for public speaking. You were not like, okay, let's get a record of something and then we can see what we can do.
Nope.
You had a goal.
We had a goal. So myself and 3 other public speakers got together, and the rules are this: either in the room or online streaming watching you have to have a minimum of 300 people, 24 hours a day, for as long as you talk. And there are 2 adjudicators there from the Guinness World Record people. And
for how long, you said?
6 days. And you're not allowed to repeat yourself. You're not allowed to stop. If you said nothing for more than, I think it was 8 seconds or something, the whole thing was wrecked. And so anyway, we decided that we would do 6-hour shifts each. So the first person 6 hours, the next person 6 hours, the next person. And while the other people were speaking, you could go and sleep or eat or whatever. And we just thought, well, let's see how long we can do this for. So the other 3 had gone first. So I didn't even get on until the record attempt had been going for 18 hours. And as I was walking up to the stage to start, I was thinking really stupid questions in my head. I was thinking, what if I forget how to speak English?
Can you speak another language?
Yeah, but English is my mother tongue. And then I was thinking, shall I drink water or not? Because if you're speaking a lot, your throat gets dry. But the problem was, if I drank a lot, I wasn't allowed off stage to go and, to the toilet or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking really stupid questions. So anyway, I got up there and I started talking. And for me, when I start public speaking, time just stands still. It's like nothing is happening around me. I'm just in the zone. And at the back of the room, the physical room, there's probably about 200 people in the physical room, and there was another 300 watching us online, because I was in the middle of the night at this time. There was these signs getting put up, and it was like 10 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go, 30 minutes over, 1 hour over, 2 hours over, get off. So I was worried.
Stop.
I was worried about, will I be able to do the 6 hours? And I accidentally spoke for 8 hours straight on that first session. It was just...
Okay, what did you talk about? And what was the plan? Did you have a plan? Did you have a topic?
Yeah. No, we all did. I was speaking about property investment, Airbnb.
It's a lot easier to talk about something you're passionate about, right?
Yeah, of course. If somebody had said to me, please give a dissertation on Chinese philosophy, I mean, but no, you could choose your own subject. So yeah, we spoke for 6 days, and I'm in the Guinness
6 days. How do you keep people in the room at night or even during the day?
Guns.
That's a good strategy.
I'm joking. The overall theme of the event was that we were raising money for charity.
Okay.
And the longer that we spoke for, and the more people we had, the more we would give to charity. And on that event, in the 6 days, we raised over £250,000.
Oh, amazing!
And that was for an end-of-life cancer care charity.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's really good. Congratulations on this.
Thank
when
you.
was this?
I'm going to say I think it was 2015. So probably 10 years.
10 years ago. Okay. It's time to start to plan the next one.
I don't know anyone crazy enough to help me. They all saw what I did last time. And when I asked them the first time, they were like, yeah, okay, but we're never going to do it. And now they know that I've done it. So we still got I tell you what would make me do it, Chris, is if someone beat me, I would come out of retire. If someone took the record off me, I'd get back out there and I'd go beat them.
Wow. Let's just see if anyone is keen. You can always send us an email and we'll organize.
Yeah, pass the challenge on.
So Paul, couple of questions, and before I let you go and I let you enjoy the nightlife of Monaco.
Thank you.
On this Friday night. Because you're talking about investment, you're talking about opportunities. What do you think about Bitcoin? It's always a sensitive topic because it's either a love relationship or a total, or the opposite.
I'm a realist. I'm a rationalist. I'm an engineer. Mm-hmm. Engineers are the most skeptical people in the world until they believe. For years, up until about 2015, I was like, rubbish, idiots, crazy. Then,
because you say you're an engineer, so you see that it's a software and you understand how it works.
I do. But I thought it was just tech nerds in anoraks doing crazy stuff.
It was.
But then I looked at it and I thought, nah, this is working. So for many years now, I've been a Bitcoin maximalist. And for all of our
Welcome on board.
For all of our crypto community out there, I'm a diamond hands hodler. I have never, ever sold any Bitcoin, ever. And I can just see that it's the ultimate store of value. My two store of value plays are gold. I really like gold, and I love Bitcoin. And where are we now? As we record this, I think Bitcoin's about $87,000 a coin today, something like that.
83,700.
Okay, you're more plugged in than I am.
I just have a little widget on top of my computer.
All right, I don't. And for me, some of the best advice I ever got with Bitcoin was, if you're worried about it going up and down and the line's too erratic for you, you're too zoomed in. Zoom out.
Don't buy it, because the
zoom out, and that's why I don't watch it every day. I don't care what it's doing. But what I do know is this: there were some Christmases. I've got 6 kids, and there were some Christmases where, and they're all adults. My youngest child is 16, and my oldest is 37, and I've got 2 grandchildren as well. So 4 oldest ones are all married.
Congratulations!
Thank you. But what I did is I said to them, look, I'm not going to give you presents. I'm going to give you Bitcoin and gold. And
when did you start doing this?
2018, I think, maybe 2019.
Smart move.
6-7 years ago. And I didn't give them, in relative terms, a lot of money. But what that's worth now is 6 figures. It's hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So I've seen that. I've seen the creation of the US Strategic Reserve, announced a few weeks ago now by Trump. I've seen what Michael Saylor's done. And for anyone that knows about Bitcoin, if you don't know about Michael Saylor, I don't know where you've been, but just go check him out. MicroStrategy. I saw what GameStop did yesterday. So my own companies, I use Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset, which I can because I'm not a listed company. I'll do what I want. And I've always
it's your company. It's
a private company. It's my company.
Yeah.
So the returns that I've seen from Bitcoin, if I'd known you're going to ask me that question, I could have got the chart out. But roughly speaking, if you go back to 2010, something like 10,000 Bitcoin would have got you a bicycle.
Yes.
By about 2016, 17, something like that, 10 Bitcoin would get you a car. And today, 5 or 6 Bitcoin would get you a Lamborghini. Or in the UK, one house is 4 or 5 Bitcoin. And if you'd have bought those Bitcoin before I did, even in 2015, you asked me earlier, Chris, what's the easiest way? Is it still easy? Yeah. When I did it, there was no bloody Bitcoin. All you have to do now, if you want to buy a house, is buy some Bitcoin.
This is exactly why I was asking you, Paul, about the property and what was the opportunities, if there was still any opportunities for millennials to become wealthy with property. And I was in the back of my head thinking that potentially Bitcoin is the equivalent of the opportunity today in terms of technology and
well, many years ago now, one of my mentors said this to me. He said, if you've got a poor mindset, I don't mean bad, I mean not much money mindset.
Yeah.
You ask all questions. Should I do property or should I do Bitcoin? Mm-hmm. If you've got a wealthy mindset, you ask and questions. How can I do property and Bitcoin and gold? So it is far simpler. You can't buy Bitcoin on credit. You can't get a 95% mortgage to buy Bitcoin. You can get a 95% mortgage to buy a house.
Yeah.
Buy a house, do it up, sell it, use the profit to buy Bitcoin. That's and. It's not or, it's and. Anybody that's listening to this, you've got even the faintest possibility of saving, because you were asking me about saving earlier on, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And you become a whole coiner. So if you get to the point that you've got one Bitcoin, your life's made.
It is, because there isn't enough of them.
That's it. They are making more at the moment, but there's a finite limit.
Yeah, it's the only finite asset in the world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. So I love it. Short answer, I love Bitcoin.
Amazing. We need to talk more.
Yeah, good.
Paul, thank you so much for spending this almost hour and a half with us here. Is there anything that you're working on today? Anything you wanna talk about? Anything you're launching soon? Any new book? You said you've written 3. When is number 4 coming out? Maybe a book about Bitcoin?
Nearly. The book I'm working on now, many people will know this book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Mm-hmm. Many people will know that. Little lessons in military history and military strategy. I love it's one of my big passions. I study military history. I'm actually writing a book called The Art of Wealth, but it's in the style of Sun Tzu. So it's just little paragraphs, but quite a lot of them on the art of becoming wealthy. So he did The Art of War. I'm doing The Art of Wealth. So that's my next book. My next project in a business sense is taking gold and making it like Bitcoin. So imagine that you could buy gold in euros or pounds or whatever, but buy physical gold. But you could then spend it on buying a croissant or buying a coffee and it gets converted instantly real time. So we've got, look at that.
Wow, what's going on?
You
just made a firework.
My computer just started doing funny things. Must be a good sign. So at one end of the spectrum, you can buy something to eat. At the other end of the spectrum, you can buy a house or buy a business.
Are you talking about tokenizing gold, or is it? What do you have in mind?
Almost. Well, done it. It's launched, and this is my next business project that not many people know about. There's an app called Glint. So I've turned my phone off. It doesn't matter. Glint.
How do you spell it?
Glint Pay. Glint Pay.
Uh-huh.
I'll turn my phone on again. It's probably going to start pinging and wrecking the podcast, but
I'll put all the links that you want in the footnote of the video.
So Glint Pay, I'll just show you the app. My phone's just coming on. I'll show you the app. But you can put money in any currency onto this app, convert it to gold. So your euros or your pounds or your dollars would become so many grams or kilograms of gold. And then anytime you buy anything, you don't spend money, you swap gold for it.
So basically you buying virtual gold, and the value of your account.
It's real gold. Real
gold, but I mean on the app. Let's just say on the app, on the front end, on the user end, they would buy gold, and the amount of the value that they have would be matched by the gold value.
Yeah. So this gold G. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. That's Glint. Get off. So it looks like that. Just opening up.
Yeah.
So you can see I've got 24,000 on there at the minute.
Yeah.
But I don't. That's what it's worth in euros.
Yeah.
It's actually equivalent to 268.6451 grams of gold.
Okay.
But more interestingly, if I go in there, you can see that I was recently in, can you see that? I was recently in
Switzerland.
Switzerland, Qatar. But look, I spent money here in Starbucks, Boca Raton. But I didn't actually spend money. I actually spent where's it gone? 0.1350 grams of gold. And so we've set this up with MasterCard. So, the good old, you can see how battered my card is. Mm-hmm. So it's all, so you can take a physical card into a retailer and just use it, or you can use your phone or your Apple Pay or whatever you want. but you hold money in gold. And, inflation is destroying everybody's money, wherever you live in the world.
Yeah.
If you'd invested in gold at the beginning of 2024, gold actually went up in value in fiat currency terms by 42%. So if you'd have put 10 grand in, it would have been worth 14,000, but you wouldn't have to do anything. So I hold a lot of gold.
So is this a saving account because you're talking about spending it?
Can be.
Or is it both?
Well, both. You can save it, which is what my children do. I do both. I store my bigger quantities of gold in private banks in Switzerland or wherever. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But most people can't do that. I mean, most people can't say, oh, well, buy me another £5 million worth of gold and vault it in Brink's Mat in Switzerland. They can't do that. What I'm passionate about is making gold accessible to everyone, like Bitcoin is. And to your Bitcoin point, I exactly mirror it. Every pound I put in Bitcoin, I put a pound in gold. It's 50-50. I mirror everything. But this democratizes gold. It turns gold into real money. And if you travel a lot, like I do, there's no foreign exchange. There's no, I'm going to Switzerland. I need to buy some Swiss francs. You don't need Swiss francs. You just use your gold. So you get no foreign exchange. You don't get ripped off at the airport. When you come back from the airport trip with, change you back again, they take 10% off you one way, 10% off you the other way. It's just great if you're into that, but not great if you're a consumer.
So this is the fintech that you've recently, or you're working on at the moment. One of your businesses, one of your projects.
Yeah, that's my next big project. And if it goes the way I think it's going to go, that's one of the ways in which I could become a billionaire.
I would love that for you.
Oh, thank
and
you.
For your family and for everyone, because obviously if you become a billionaire, then this is the second stage of your financial life, I want to say, and then you can achieve a lot of things.
The wealthier I become, the more people I can help. That's it. Simple.
Yeah. Paul, thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
Thank you, Chris.
I really enjoyed learning about your journey and your life, and I feel like we could have another episode at some point to talk more about different projects, or maybe look into your 17 businesses.
If you want, just let me know. Happy to come back anytime. Thank you.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. And I will put all the links to your social media and all your company and all your profiles on a footnote of the episode.
Thank you. Appreciate it.